So when you hear someone talk about the HIRE Act, things can get confusing. And I mean, really fast. Are we talking about a tax break for businesses? A penalty for outsourcing? Was it a huge success? A total bust? Well, the answer is kinda yes to all of those. And it all depends on which HIRE Act you're actually talking about. Okay, let's dive in and untangle this thing.
And that's really the heart of the problem, right? There isn't just one HIRE Act. Nope. There are two totally different laws that happen to share the same name but have completely opposite ideas behind them. You could say one is a carrot, and the other one, well, it's a stick.
And this timeline just lays it all out perfectly. The first one back in 2010 was passed into law right in the middle of the Great Recession. It was all about incentives, giving companies a tax break to hire folks who were out of a job. The second one is a much more recent proposal for 2025, and it's all about punishment, hitting companies with a big tax if they ship jobs overseas. So the big question is, did either of these actually work, or are they just political slogans dressed up to look like real policy?
All right, so let's start our investigation with Exhibit A, the HIRE Act of 2010. This one actually became law, so we've got some real data we can sink our teeth into.
Now, if you just listen to the official government story, the 2010 Act was a massive success, a real home run. The goal was to get hiring jump-started when unemployment was through the roof, and at first glance, the numbers looked amazing.
The U.S. Treasury Department came out with this giant number, 5.6 million. They claimed the act was directly responsible for that many people getting hired. I mean, think about it. At a time when the economy was in a free fall, a number that big looks like an incredible victory.
And it wasn't just about the jobs. The Treasury also said that businesses got a cool $10.4 billion in tax savings. So you've got more people working, and companies get to keep more of their money. On paper, that sounds like a perfect policy, a total win-win.
Of course, you know how it is with these big government programs. The headline number almost never tells the whole story. So the real question is, what happens when you start to dig a little deeper?
And this is where the story starts to get complicated. See, you've got the official Treasury lineup up top, huge success. But right underneath, you see academic studies that found, well, just a modest short-term boost, and the long-term impact was pretty weak. Their main complaint? The policy was incredibly expensive for each job it actually created. And then you have media experts who are even more skeptical, talking about something they called job churn instead of new jobs.
So let's break that down. First, the cost. Economists pointed out that you could probably create more jobs for the same amount of cash by just spending it on things like infrastructure. But the bigger issue was this idea of job churn. The act often ended up just paying companies for hires they were probably going to make anyway. So it wasn't creating new jobs, it was just subsidizing existing hiring plans. In fact, some analyses suggest that up to 60% of those 5.6 million hires would have happened no matter what. And yeah, you bet some companies figured out how to game the system to get the biggest tax credits possible. So, was it a hoax? No, not really, but it probably wasn't the miracle it was sold as. Okay, let's fast forward to today and look at our second piece of evidence, Exhibit B, the proposed HIRE Act of 2025. This one is a whole different ballgame. It's not about incentives at all. It's about dropping the hammer.
At its core, this proposal is designed to make outsourcing super expensive, maybe even painful. So if a U.S. company pays a firm in another country for services, like tech support or a call center, this bill would slap a whopping 25% tax on every one of those payments.
The process is designed to be a 1-2-3 punch. A company outsources a job. Bam! They get hit with that 25% tax. Then, bam! They lose the ability to deduct those costs as a business expense. And all that money that gets collected, it goes into a fund to help retrain American workers. It's a very direct shot at trying to bring jobs back home by making it financially toxic to send them away.
As you can imagine, the debate around this is pretty intense. On one side, supporters are saying this is exactly what we need to protect American jobs and fund our own workforce. But on the other side, opponents are warning that it'll just make U.S. companies less competitive, could jack up prices for all of us, and might even get us in trouble with international trade organizations.
And here's the really crucial piece of context you need for this 2025 version. While it gets a lot of press, right now it's just a proposal. It's been introduced, but it hasn't picked up any real support or co-sponsors. That means, for now, its chances of actually becoming law are pretty slim. It's looking more like a political message than a piece of pending legislation. So, after looking at both of these very different HIRE Acts, what's the verdict? Was it a real job creator, or was it just a hoax? Is what we're seeing good policy, smart politics, or just good old-fashioned PR?
The
The bottom line is this: calling either one a hoax is probably the wrong word. The 2010 Act was a real law with real money attached. The debate is just about whether it was effective or worth the cost. And the 2025 version is a real bill. But right now, it seems to be more about sending a political message on outsourcing than it is about actually becoming law.
So let's put them side by side one last time. You've got the 2010 carrot, which was enacted but had some pretty questionable results, and you've got the 2025 stick, which is still just a proposal and feels a lot more like a political symbol. Two totally different approaches, both aimed at the same problem, but with wildly different stories behind them.
And all of this brings us to a much bigger question, one that goes way beyond just the higher acts. When governments use these huge financial levers, either giant tax breaks or massive new taxes, are they actually creating real sustainable jobs in the long run? Or is it all just political theater, designed to make it look like our leaders are doing something, even if the results are, well, pretty debatable? Let me know what you think.